Guys. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about how things have changed and how my perspective has changed since I had my baby. Um, I shared quite a bit during the process of pregnancy with how difficult it had been for me, and also sort of a transformation I went through towards the end where I kind of realized why it had been so hard for me, and that kind of enriched the experience, even though it was so terrible. In the end, it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It was all worth it. So this time, I wanted to share how my thoughts, my feelings, and my perspectives have changed in a really good way. A few days after my baby was born, my mother-in-law, who had seen my post about pregnancy, asked me what I thought about motherhood now that I'd had my baby. And I told her it was too early to tell and to ask me again in a month. Yeah, so here's kind of my response to that question. By 8 weeks, I sort of felt like I finally had gained enough perspective to know how I felt about it. However, I was really reluctant to share my feelings and thoughts at first. Sort of like when you have really good news to share in the middle of somebody else's tragedy, you almost don't want to say it because you feel guilty that you're experiencing something positive while others are not. And that's kind of how it felt to me. James asked me early on if I liked motherhood, and I just didn't know how to answer. Like, there was nothing about it that made me feel otherwise, and it was really strange. I usually have some annoyance or pain or something like that to explain first of why it isn't easy. To me, although it wasn't easy, it was way better than pregnancy, and that was kind of the highest compliment I was willing to afford it at first. And that, mind you, that is saying an awful lot. Pregnancy was awful for me. It was almost like I didn't want to tempt fate. Like some part of me felt that as soon as I admitted or danced near the edge of boastfulness, that I dared to like it, that a world of difficulty would ensue. And mind you, I would listen to James tell his family on the phone how easy things were because she did something well. And then the next day, it would all change. So I just decided early on to keep the proclamations to myself because I didn't want to topple from having a big head. And I'm not really sure if that's how things actually work, but that's just kind of how I felt. So, for my own sanity and to make a point of coming across clearly, I'll start with the disclaimer. Motherhood is not easy. It's not for anyone who doesn't want their heart and their jana to be stretched. It's for women who are willing to be brave. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, the second thing that I'll say is you're not alone. Even if you are, you're not alone. Now, I'm at the point now where I can say that I enjoy motherhood greatly. Love still feels like a bit lofty of a thing to say. I'm a slow burn baby. I'm not there yet. When I explained to my friend about parenthood, I told her how now you have to make a song and a dance for everything that you do. Like before, I used to sing and I used to dance because I was happy, and now I do it because if I don't, chaos will ensue. There is no alternative. It's like you're on hot coals and you can't stop. This was especially true in the first 8 weeks. I wore my girl on me in a wrap everywhere because she wouldn't nap without me. She only could sleep with us near her or on us. And so singing and rocking while applying mascara without getting smudged was a newly acquired skill, and finishing floral arrangements around the clock while dancing and rocking my baby was something I never thought I could calmly and sanely do. And I surprised myself with my resilience and my patience. And I realized that I'm made of way stronger stuff than I ever thought. I completely underestimated myself and my strength. So that was a really cool thing to realize. Motherhood is a job that never stops. This is why I was so afraid to do it. I knew that I liked my freedom and my free time, and although I have less free time and I'm always on call when I do have free time, I don't feel as though I've lost anything. But I've gained another heart. I've gained a heart that will forever be linked to mine. And I didn't want to do this because I knew it would be hard. And people kept saying things like, just you wait, or can't do that when you have kids, because it's way harder to, or because they didn't, which may be true. If you want to do something badly enough and for the right reasons, you can still find a way. Kids make it more difficult, but it's not impossible. And they also make it more worth it. So take that and think about that before you say those stupid little comments. You can shove those up your butt. It's not what people need to hear before they're gonna have a kid. They know it's gonna change their lives, and if they don't, they'll soon figure it out. But saying that doesn't help. I tell people now that it's certainly hard. I'm not one of those lucky people who had a perfect baby. It hasn't been easy. And I know some people might think otherwise because she now sleeps really well through the night, but that's because we introduced a really important sleep schedule routine that we found from a baby book. So it didn't just happen. She wasn't just born this easy baby. And she's still not easy, but she's a really good baby now because she has routine and schedule, and that's what babies thrive on. Anyway, so I tell people now that it is certainly hard. We weren't one of those lucky people that had a perfect baby. People weren't wrong when they were trying to tell us that it would be hard. And I knew this, but what people don't tell you, in brackets, only my brother told me this once in fewer words, you think that you're going to lose your freedom and not be able to do as much, and you do. But then you realize you don't care because you've gained so much. You gain a family, and it's the kind of family you choose to build the way you want to. And that's a pretty cool thing. So, yeah. Having a baby is the kind of hard and the kind of difficulty that makes you a better person. It makes you stronger. You feel strengthened through every choice that you make every day to care for your little one. You feel strengthened. And even on a scientific level, that's true. Every time you touch your baby, the oxytocin levels, aka the love chemical in your brain, gets higher for both mothers and for fathers. Every time you interact with your baby, the reward center in your brain is being satisfied. So you literally feel strengthened through choosing your baby over yourself, even chemically. And that's really incredible. Like, it's amazing. And the best way to describe how it feels to me would be to say that it feels like I have an exoskeleton or scaffolding around me, holding me up and strengthening me as a person with every move that I make. I don't feel alone in it like I thought I would. I feel like I just had to say yes and keep saying yes. And something else makes me float in a sea that I didn't know how to swim in. So I feel strengthened and held up like I have a life jacket on. And that's the coolest thing. In the beginning, it's really tricky. You feel like a cow and your body isn't your own. And when he or she is not feeding, you are a human soother for your baby to use you to fall asleep and to stay asleep. And it's a lot. But it's a very brief season, and as long as you prioritize sleeping, even in the daytime, you can maintain your mental health enough to really enjoy the season. Without extra naps or sleeping in, yes, postpartum depression could easily happen, especially if labor was traumatic. It's all a really jarring transition into a new life. Here's my little girl. Her name is Ivana Grace, and she is 4 months old now. Goes by so fast. She's my little baby, my little darling. And she's the sweetest little thing. She's such a good little girl. Love her so much. I saw for myself how delicate my mental state would become being up every hour, hour and a half, 2 hours every night. Hormones are going to make you more weepy or emotional. You can feel them coursing through your body sometimes and through your brain, making you more sensitive and feeling heightened emotions. So sleep is really essential, or else the heightened emotions that you do feel are going to be very bad ones, because let's face it, sleep deprived people are not happy people. So I'm not trying to scare anyone with how little sleep you get, because that's not actually necessarily true. You just have to prioritize getting it. So I actually got more sleep after she was born than while I was pregnant, because I was experiencing insomnia from all the physical pain of being pregnant and the acid reflux and nausea and the rib pain. Everything I was experiencing in pregnancy kept me up quite a bit, so I was only getting like 3 to 4 to max 5 hours a night of sleep. When I had my baby in the first 10 weeks, I was able to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep. I would aim for a minimum of 6 to 7, but I would try to get like 7 to 8. The cool thing about it is you do get tired when you feed your baby, and that's something I didn't know. There's something about feeding that makes the mom and the baby tired, especially at night and especially in the early days. So it's really amazing. I thought the insomnia could continue into like that stage once I had my baby, but that was like absolutely not the case. Most days in the first 6 weeks, I didn't end up eating breakfast until in the afternoon. And that would be when people would bring food to us, or when James would make something, because like there's a lot less than the husband can do, or the partner. The person breastfeeding does most of the work, and that's fine because you want to. I thought he would be doing way more, but it was just like, I know her needs way better. I know her signals way better because I spend the most time with her. So it's just easier for me to do most of it, and I like wanted to. So it was easy. Like, I'm not the type of person that wants to do all the chores ever. But this was different. So that was nice. I think it was a little harder for him because he wanted to do more at first, and then he realized he was pretty limited on what he could do. So he did a lot of the housework, and he did a lot of like cooking for me, and like just his job became supporting me to be the best mom that I could be. So he would do a huge amount of work. I shouldn't say just, he would do a huge amount of work, but just less involving her, more about supporting me, and so I could support her. It was a very important job. He would change her diapers to give me a break, and I would feed, like, which is 24/7 in the beginning. It's not like always like that. It definitely goes down quite a bit, but in the first 3 months you do quite a bit. So we would just keep her sleeping in a dark room with us. So that was a little trick before their bodies adjust to like their circadian rhythm adjusts. We took advantage of the fact that she didn't know that it was daytime. So we blocked out all the light in the room because we have blackout curtains, and we would just keep the room dark. So she would wake up in the early hours to feed, and then we would just like make sure she went back to sleep and block out all the light so we could go back to sleep too. And she slept in our bed with us, and it was more, the co-sleeping was more reactionary for us. We realized it was the only way we could get sleep, and so we did it, and we actually loved it. Like, we loved co-sleeping for the beginning. Like, we did it for the first 9.5 weeks or so, and like I loved it. I never thought that I would want to do it or feel comfortable doing it, but it was such a special thing, and I think I would do it again. I don't know if I would do it for more than 6 weeks next time, but I would certainly do it in the beginning. For us, we had to stop because it wasn't really working for us anymore. It was kind of creating some new problems for us. Not that that always happens. For some people, co-sleeping works for a really long time. Each baby is different, and there are different ripple effects that can happen to each choice you make with how you raise your child. And we just started to notice a few effects that we didn't really like, so we chose to change what we were doing, but that's not always the case. So I want to say, like, nothing against co-sleeping. I loved it. Just realized we hit a wall. We had to change what we were doing. So I'll talk about that another day. So another thing is, skin-to-skin contact with the baby helps your uterus shrink back and go back to size quickly. Not if you're a man, though. This is for women. Skin-to-skin contact helps your uterus shrink back, and so do this as much as possible. And even if you experience the pain of it contracting, it hurt me like hell to nurse her skin to skin on my chest. I could feel it. It was like the worst pain, it contracting. But I also knew it was a good thing as soon as I felt that pain, because I'd heard about this. And about a week and a half later, I was wearing a tight skirt, and people were so surprised. But I swear that it was from this skin to skin feeding that did it. Some people ask me, like, what did you do for this to happen? And I never told them anything at the time because I wasn't sure. But the more I did it, like, the more I could really tell. Like, I could literally see my stomach was smaller after doing that. And so she would just sit on my fat belly, like the ball of my belly, like it was a chair. And she would sit in the koala position and feed. And it might not be as easy to do if you have a big baby, but she was small, quite small. So I did that most days in the first weeks, and it was the best. Like, I loved it. It was so special. I don't know, the koala position, I loved it. I know that doesn't happen like that for everyone, but it's definitely worth trying. That's why I share. So the cool thing is when you breastfeed, it's actually negative calories. A lot of people don't realize that, and it's a good thing because for the first 3 months, especially the first 6 weeks, you're just sitting on the couch breastfeeding literally all day long. Like, you have breaks, but they're not very long. And so, especially for me, like, she was not a quick feeder. She would take like 45 minutes, and then, you know, she was feeding every hour to 2 hours at the beginning. So it's like I was constantly feeding. It's a good thing I didn't have any time to exercise, and you don't have the strength yet at the beginning to do that anyway, and your body was just ripped open. So it's a good thing that it is that way, and a lot of people don't realize it's really cool. So one thing I've heard people say is, like, you should sleep when the baby is sleeping, and then I've heard some people be like, that's impossible, like, I can't do that. And it's like, you got to do that. Like, if you don't do that, you won't enjoy this season of life that can potentially be one of the most beautiful seasons of life that you'll ever have. Like, your tiny little beautiful baby that's you and your partner's qualities mixed, like, experiencing that when they're just like this little miracle. You don't want to miss that because you prioritized working and other things. Like, sleep in, take naps. Like, don't put too much on the docket for the day of what you need to get done. Just don't do that. Like, what you need to do is prioritize your mental health. And in order to have a strong mind, you need to prioritize rest. You need to nap, sleep in, do what you can to get extra sleep. And it's not that you're going to be awake in the night for extra time. You're only going to be awake while you're feeding them, and then you'll easily fall right back asleep. That's the beauty of, like, breastfeeding. Like, you'll fall back to sleep really easily. But it's just that if you're awake 1 hour and then asleep the next and then awake 1 hour, it takes longer to get a normal amount of sleep. So that's why you should try to sleep in as much as possible or take naps. And if you have a strong mind, you will love that season. And I think that's important to know, like, because, like, I saw people around me do it and have very little sleep and suffer, and, like, their mental health was not in a good place, and it influenced how much they loved what they were doing as a parent. And jobs are important and your work is important because it's your livelihood, but your life is more important, and the people in your life are more important than your work and more important than your livelihood. And if you, like, don't have money for a season, figure it out. But, like, you won't ever get that time back that you worked away while you had a baby. And you won't get your mental health back very easily if you sacrifice the very thing that's gonna keep it together, and that's rest. I saw for myself, like, I wasn't sleep deprived in the first 10 weeks. It wasn't until I moved her into another room that I started having anxiety. She was sleeping through the night, but I stopped sleeping through the night because she was, like, further away from me, and now my heart was in another room, and it was like, what if somebody were to break in the house? Like, you know, stupid things, like, I don't know what's happening when she's in the other room. Like, I just couldn't rest on that. So I'm trying to sort that out now, but I saw for myself how, like, easily the mental health crumbles when you don't have sleep. And I knew that was the case, but then like after, when we moved her, she started sleeping through the night, not needing to wake up and feed. Like I literally would wake up because I wanted to feed her, but like she doesn't need to, so like I'd leave her to let her sleep because she's supposed to sleep. But now like I can't go back to sleep because that used to help me go back to sleep, and now I don't have that. So now I actually have to figure out my insomnia because before, the breastfeeding actually quelled it, and now it's like back, and so I'm having to sort that out.